Focusing Evenepoel shuts the mouths of his haters Lance Armstrong and Eddy Merckx and makes it to the podium places for this Tour de France after a time trial exhibition of which we will tell you, as always, its main secrets. Poggy, our beloved yellow alien, made use of the power savings of his aerodynamic bra to finish in a magnificent second place after taking risks on every corner as he had never done before. The Danish anchovy, despite being defeated today, only lost 25 seconds to his main rival for the general classification, and we are sure that his perforated gills have recovered and he is gaining power and energy after this great time trial. The Slovenian skier, who many thought was finished, continues to prove that he has cojones, and despite being 34 years old, he will also fight for the final podium in Nice, where an old blue blood playboy will be waiting for him, smiling as he was for the Pizza Hut delivery boy today. This was the first time trial of the Tour de France 2024. Subscribe to the channel for daily content from La Grand Boucle. And without further ado, let the show begin. The day started nervously, just the way the world champion of the speciality likes it. There was lots of talk about the various mechanical improvements which the teams would be displaying. More talk than about what really matters, the ability of the riders on the steel or carbon horses. The Rabobank team showed off an impressive saddle which would have made even the white Kenyan fly, created by the miracle engineer John Iriberri. And then the Saunier Duval team had rumoured to have improved its Colnago bike in just 2 months, with improvements of performance in up to 40 seconds being whispered about. Something that was finally proven to be fake news. So obsessed with beating Jonas that during his training camp in Isola 2000 weeks before the Tour, he had imitated the riders of the 80s and done 100-kilometre time trial sessions without moving for a second from his specialist time trial bike with the most powerful technological advances. You know, sometimes I don't know if we're talking about Formula One or cycling, what with Williams and McLaren or, well, even Ferrari. However, reality was quite different. The Rabobank team guys were hiding on their bus as if it were a bunker, and of course not letting anyone in to disturb these powerful athletes who were so focused on putting on their new conehead helmets that were going to give them an advantage of numerous seconds over their rivals, so saith the Dutchman's publicity brochures in March, when they presented that aberration to the world. Focusing Evenepoel was doing the same on his bus, but he looked preoccupied next to old Lefebvre, and his great friend and director Ilio Kais was looking at the big data on heat and wind on the ideal time to take his little legal medicated dose. The Slovenian, meanwhile, he looked so relaxed that, well, he must have taken one of his classic lager beers. He was that calm. Perhaps he knew that his teammate Calippo Soler, faithful admirer of the doped Diego Armando Maradona, was sure to be giving him an extra ice cream at the end of the stage, one brought directly by his friendly family, who were, of course, all present and correct. However, among all these stars and the local son of Jean-François Bernard, the always clean rider, despite competing in doped teams, according to Greg LeMond, there was one superstar who overshadowed all the others. We're talking about the guy who dared to ask the Spaniards about doping just before Operation Puerto. A man proud of the clean riders in the international peloton, and the man who we mentioned earlier, the alopecia possible future great friend of the channel, former blue blood playboy Alberto de Monaco. The same one who allowed monsters like the White Kenyan to commit all kinds of outrages in his country between visits to Lucca and Dr. Freeman. But there he walked before the crowd, surrounded by his bodyguards, as he did at the start and he will do at the finish of the Tour de France, and always every day inching ever closer to the riders, surely whispering in their ears that they should leave their Spanish homes and that he will build hypoxic rooms in the small tax haven for them. Oh, they should come and end up residing there, surely. The first big time of the day was a surprise, although every day we're getting less and less surprised by it. We're talking about Nutella Vauclin. the French cyclist of the Breton team, who, although he'd finished second in the nationals of his country, it's become clear that he is now a perfect multi-tool since abandoning chocolate from his diet, and also that nobody in his team takes tramadol anymore. His time was so good that it took a super specialist like Victor Campenaerts, the popular Belgian from the Lotto team with 9 victories in this discipline. Well, he was the first one to beat his time by hundredths of a second after riding the final part, crushing the pedals as if he were an elephant pushed by Alexander Kolobnev himself. His sub-30-minute time indicated that he could literally fly on the time trial bike today. But in the end, the Belgian, an absolutely exceptional physical specimen in this tour, sat in the hot seat for a long hour and a half. Yes, there were some surprising attempts by riders who came close to overtaking him, and we're not talking about a disappointing Belgian bot who is certainly a long way from his best physical condition. Rather, we're talking about an ever-surprising Ben Healy. The Irish multi-tool showed an impressive improvement on the time trial bike that Andrea Piccolo's team had prepared in Girona, the popular Spanish city whose fresh air has been key to the improvement of this strange cyclist over the last 2 years, since he lives there and has started to win following the advice of his doped-up hipster director, one who we imagine is already buying €1,000 socks for his riders so that they are impeccably dressed. If the road had had any more orographic difficulties, the lightweight rider could possibly have overtaken Victor Campenaerts, but unfortunately the flat, narrow, beautiful terrain proposed by the organisation was just not quite right for the English Irishman. But then it was the turn of the monsters of the Tour, and the Lotto Belgian began to see how each and every one of them overtook him, each in their own way. The Danish anchovy, who before leaving accelerated his heart rate to set off like a rocket, made his classic show, rushing into the curves as if he were on a motorcycle. But of course the Dane, always the Dane, he had no engine today, and the scarcity of downhills on the course prevented him from being able to take dozens of seconds off his rivals, despite his magical new saddle. Roglic received the wings of Red Bull, and always went from less to more. This is going to be the case of his Tour de France. He pedalled with his classic high cadence, recovering seconds and then overtaking the anchovy at the end by 3 seconds. A great injection of morale for the Austrian billionaires who will give the skier their finest doses of taurine over the following days. The yellow jersey, highly motivated from the start, took risks like never before. He took advantage of his skill on the bike and the power savings of his aerodynamic bra to fly, beating the anchovy by 25 seconds, a lead of 1 minute 15 seconds in the GC. This is probably less than Dracula Gianetti expected at the beginning, but it will nevertheless help Poggi to be more and more confident in the coming stages. However, the star of the day was Remco Evenepoel, the rider who prepared at the Centro de Alto Rendimiento in Granada with his hypoxic rooms and combined them with his own and Kolobnev's hypoxic chambers. An absolutely legendary Quick Step team training. A camp that helped him to lose 3 kilos in the last 20 days and has served to keep an absolutely useless tester like Mikel Landa in the top 10 overall after this stage. That's the scale of things. But Focusing came off the start ramp totally unchained. Well, not unchained, because the truth is that the guy had the chains centered, adopting an absolutely perfect aerodynamic suppository-style position, and he never lifted his head for a second, except when he felt something and heard a noise that seemed like a puncture, but in reality it was nothing. This position, which the experts call the ironing board, and which we will call the Kate Moss position, is very hard to hold. Horrible, in fact, as the Pizza Hut boy himself said in December to our YouTuber friends of the Rabobank team. However, today he was enjoying himself with Kate Moss, as if he were Pete Doherty, but only with the drugs that Dr. Van Mol prescribed him as a child. Despite his relative inability on the descents, the real factor that will cause him to lose this Tour de France, and the puncture that wasn't, he still took 12 seconds off the alien, and almost 40 seconds off the other 2 monsters, and all this in just 25 kilometres. It will probably cost him a lot of effort to reach the final podium, if he makes it, and possibly this will be his only victory in the Tour, but he has already silenced the mouths of those who said he was going to pass through France without shame or glory or making any kind of impression. But not us, though. You might not have seen our video in January when we insisted that this little Belgian Bart Simpson would be a surprise package. Take a look at the video on the screen. You will love it.